Test, test, test. Okay, 10:30. It is Tuesday, 26th of November, 2024, and we are live with another mixing live stream covering some tracks from Darko's 2020 Sparkle EP. Today we are looking at the song Quite. And if you haven't seen them, you can check out two previous streams. The first one was Cruel to Be, the second one was The Ladder. I try not to repeat myself too much, so if you want some details on things like routing, how the projects are set up, some of the details about tracking, etc., then check those streams out first. Let's have a look at what we're working with here. So what I'm going to do is just play a bit of the track. This is just with no processing. The levels are going to be a bit out. The vocals were recorded with no processing at all, so they'll be very dynamic, but you'll get an idea of what the song sounds like. Let's close this as well. I've got the chat over to my right, and that's why I keep looking over to this side, if you're wondering. Cool, so you get an idea. Another sort of melodic hardcore punk song from Darko. Some issues we're going to have with this one again are quite high tempo, some very fast snare rolls that we'll have to deal with, and I think the rest of it should be fairly straightforward. Alright, let's get cracking then. So first of all, we're going to have a look at the kick. Let's find a nice bit with a solid bit of kicks. So we've got the live kick in, kick out, going to this live kick bus, and then we've got a kick trigger and a kick room trigger. I think this is from Bogan Digital, and then these are all being summed together on one bus. So let's have a look at these. So kick in, kick out together. Let's balance those. Let's get into a longer bit of the song. Cool. Let's do a little bit of gating here. Suck out some of this. Tiny bit of compression. Generally with this compressor I just like to have it just activating these lights here. It seems to work pretty well. Cool. Let's blend in the kick trigger. Cool. So I don't think it needs to be too loud. It's just adding a bit of that attack that the live kick's missing, and then the room. Just makes it feel more realistic. It just feels like it now exists in a space. That should be okay for now. Cool, so let's move over to the bus. I have all my mix buses just over here to the right, so they're kind of, once I'm in the mix mode, I can just deal with these all as one, rather than having to flick back and forth through the session. So let's have a look at, so if you've watched the other live streams, you'll know basically how I work each individual bus is kind of like a version of top-down mixing within that bus. So I generally turn on some of the compression, saturation, that kind of thing first, and then I work back into the EQ. So let's have a look at some compression. So I normally find slowest attack, fastest release is pretty good for a punchy kick. Yep, bit of tape. Turn the console on. We're not using it at the moment. Maybe a tiny bit more compression here. Let's have a look. Yep, true iron. A bit more weight, clipping. Cool, let's get into the EQ then. So, low cut. It's quite, the Darko songs are pretty fast, so you don't need too much of this sub. Next we'll cut some of this rumble here. Some of this sort of boxiness. And then I've been liking this little cut here. Amazing, that little notch just seems to tighten the whole thing up. You don't need this super high end. Let's have a look if there's normally a few little bits I don't like in the upper mids. Cool, and then a bit of shaping with the console. sounds pretty good for now. Let's have a look at snare. Snare, so we've got the same as the other tracks. We've got the snare top and snare bottom, and then we've got the snare turbo tracks. So these are basically duplicates of the top and bottom microphones, and then I've run drum leveler and silencer on them to essentially create a more consistent and slightly less bleed, so that when you play the two together, so the snare at top and bottom on their own, and then when you add the snare turbos in, cool. So let's blend those together. Little compression, I think. Cool. And we'll go with a little bit more bleed reduction with silencer. The default settings are too extreme, I think. Just check for any dynamic parts of the song. Cool. And then we'll have a look at some EQ. We'll probably put the EQ before the compressor. Let's have a look. Cleaning up some of this mid-range. Lots of snares. Just take out some of these sort of rattier areas in the top where some of this bleed's cutting through. Cool, sounding pretty good. Let's blend in our snare triggers, which we've already got set up. Again, they are from Belgrade Digital on this mix. So we've got the Super Nice, which I think is ringy. So puts a little bit of compression on there. Adds a bit of ring. That kind of area. And then this one gives a bit more weight. Bit of room. cutting out some of that sort of ratty stuff in this high mid region. And then we've got a large snare sample which is just used at the halftime bit at the end, I think. Kind of mid-rangey. Cool, that's probably good for now. We might have to rebalance that later, but I